Right, the first thing we do when we start painting the parrot is I'm going to paint the entire background first. Now the background I want it to be blurred, and I want it to be a whited out, blurred view. That way the parrot and the bottle brush pop out of the page a lot more because it's got a light background. So first thing I'm doing is I'm using some water and just wetting the area that I'm going to be working on with some white paint, watered down white paint, and I'm wetting the canvas. It allows the paint to smoothly flow over the canvas a lot more easier than it normally would. Now I'll do the top section here first. Now because it's white paint, I can still see the bird underneath it, so I can paint over that section without bothering it. Now I'm going to use just a pinch of different colours to represent what's in the background. For example, this is a bushy area. This here, that's probably a little bit too red. I'm going to lighten that up a bit. So I'm going to wash my brush out, wipe my brush out, get some white. This is wattle that's in the background. So I'm just giving that impression that there's something there. Wipe my brush. Big thing with brushes is make sure you get rid of the contamination of different colours. So now I don't have that red affecting the green. Now I'm just going to softly, with the tip of my brush, give it a blurred effect by taking out all those rough edges in the paint, softening it right up. And it's so much easier to work on a canvas when it's wet because it just flows easier over the rough surface. Alright, now I'm going to give a pinch of blue in the white. Just give it that sky effect. And same thing, work it into the wet paint and then softly with the tip take out all the rough edges. Just to soften it up. Painting it over where the bird is, over where everything is. You don't want to paint just right up to the edge because you never get it perfect. And now I'm going to work down through the rest of the picture, doing the background. Just going to move that light a bit because it's a bit harsh. No avoiding it. Just leave it there. So as I go down, just a bit more blue in the sky. Add some pinch of green. I'll put a little bit more wattle. Red is always really harsh, so you've got to use the minimum amount of red when adding it. And behind that wattle, I'm just going to give it a bit more green. Because at the moment it looks like I've just missed that area. Bit of blue. Not too much. And once again, soften it all up with a soft tip of the brush. And we'll go over this side. Of course I don't wet the whole canvas all in one go, because by the time I get to the end of it, it'll dry it up and I'll have to re-wet it again. So you can still see that stencil mark between, well, it's not actually stencil, this time I drew it on with a watercolour pencil, and it's blending into the white paint a bit, but I can still see it. Softening it up to a bit white, so I put a bit of green down, thin it out, and then I'm putting in some white just to soften it up that little bit more. Ooh, too harsh. Clean the brush off, add some white. Some bit of red wattle behind them. Always going too much. Alright, clean all that paint off my brush. Layer it with white just to thin out those colours and softly blend it in. I don't want too much detail in the background. All this focus is going to be on the bird and the plant. You can see here it's starting to, the white in the background's drying out. So I'm just adding a bit of water to the brush just to soften all that paint up again. You always got to remember when doing the background, it's priority. Is it the background you want people to look at or the foreground? This picture is the foreground. So therefore the detail in the background is very minimal. And I'm using the light colours in the background to enhance the bird and the plants in the foreground. And acrylics will always dry that little bit darker than what they are when they're wet. So taking that into consideration, these colours will come out a little bit darker once they're dry. Some tidying up, getting rid of all those little brush strokes I can see. If you want that effect of roughness of brush strokes, you go for that. This time I've decided to go that soft look. And the edges of my canvas I'm just going to give it, it's going to have a white vignette. Okay, so now I'm going to start painting on the painting of the bird. even though there's some plants going behind it, I think it's probably going to be easier for me if I do the bird and then touch up the edges of the bird when I do the background images. So, the bird's various colours. I'm going to go with a smaller, medium round brush for this. And I'm just going to paint the background colours of the bird with a bit of water in the paints. So I'm just putting in what I think the colouring would be on the bird, where I want to put it. Just to see how it comes out. And then I'll start adding detail to it. That also gives me that base coat to work with. Blend that bit. So I click to blend, I'm going to clean all the paint off my brush, have it a bit wet, and just work the darker colour into the lighter colour. You never go the opposite way. It's impossible to work lighter colours into dark colours properly. So that's roughly what I'm after. Once again, this is only background colour, so I'm not getting too fussy with it. Give this breast a red colour. And what this giving it a background colour also allows me to not have to worry about filling in the pores of the canvas when I'm doing detail, because it's already above the base colour that I'm after. That's the challenges of working with canvas, is it's not a flat surface and it's a porous surface. It sucks up all the paint. So it's easier when it's primed and wet. Alright. Let's get some green. Entire wings going down there. Top of the bird's green. That's its way of camouflage. Green down this part of the wing. Tops of his tail. Give him his orange beak. So again, to get a, you can get a straight smooth edge by adding a little bit of water to your paint. Not too much because then it becomes translucent. Now I've got a darker blue than I used in the sky for his belly. Filling up all those pores in the canvas. Now, if I've gone over a spot that I shouldn't have, I'm not worried about it too much. It's just a base coat. I can paint over it. It's more the lighter colours that I'm worried about. The darker colours, I try and keep them only where I want them because they're harder to paint over, but not impossible. So his eyes going. Always got red in it, so I'm just going to base coat that red. The claws I'm not going to worry about at this stage, I'll paint them in later. Alright, so there's my base colours. Right, so now I'm going to go and start working on the detail of the bird. This blue down here, there's going to be three shades. There's going to be a dark blue, which I'm going to add some red to the blue to make it like a purpley darker shade. And then I'm going to use a lighter blue, which I'll add white to it when I get to it. White to the normal blue. So this area is going to be a shade, so what I'm doing is dabbing on, like, what do you call it, feathers. And I'm just looking for a feather effect. That's some lighter blue, the mid-tone blue, and I still can't quite see it, so I'm going to create a lighter blue. That's it. And I'm just dabbing on thick layers of paint. Just looking for that feather effect. So I'm just pushing down. And as I work up, I'm going to get lighter and lighter, because it'll be less and less in shadow. I'm not starting on the wing first because the wing overlaps his belly. So at the top here, I'm after that light blue finish, or lighter blue. I'm not going to work on that orange section because I want the blue to dry out a bit. We might as well go up and work on his head now. And once again at the bottom we want that darker shade. So I'm creating red and blue together to give it a darker blue. As you can see the advantages of having that base coat there. Now I'm just starting to lighten it up. Little strokes of white, or light, really light blue. I could use a smaller, thinner brush for this, which I might try to attempt. Not the best of brushes. So we're looking for little white feathers there popping out. Then we get really light at the top. So I'm giving it a lighter base coat. Now start popping in that white. There's some darker bits down the bottom there. Get some darker bits underneath the shaded area there. Right, back to the light. So I'm just using basically white now. And working it into that blue. And I'm going to get some darker at the top of his beak. Bit of white just to give the impression of where the feathers are going. And there's some darker shades around the eyes. Notice I'm not using black to darken areas. Try to avoid black. You can get darker colours just by adding different colours together. So for the darker blue, I'm adding red to it. So there's a dark area around his eyes. Just running some little feathers off so it covers the background edge. Righto. Might even put some bit more blue down the bottom here. Yep, that's good. Clean my brush right off. Now I'm going to go to the yellow. I could say I made a little bit of a mistake here. I should have started towards the bottom of the bird because the blue feathers will overlap. The top feathers overlap the bottom feathers. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving it the yellow feather area in here, hitting it with the yellow, but I'm also hitting it with a bit of green just to break up the shaded areas of the yellow. And then I'm going to get some blue and overlap the top edge. The dark blue. Just to give the impression those top feathers are coming over the yellow. Get a bit of white into it. There we go. Excuse me. I'm going to work on this belly part now because I don't want to hit the green yet. Start with my mid-sized brush and work my way down, give it a good clean. I'm going to go with some clean water now. It starts out, pattern goes around the bird's body. Excuse me. Give you some orange. Now I'm building it up at the moment. I'm just getting some paint down there, wet paint to work with the orange. Before I go back to the yellow, I'll clean my brush out. I'll start getting that yellow down a bit thicker, blending it in towards the orange. So I've got these dabs of white, of yellow and orange. And while it's wet, I'm going to go with a smaller brush. I'm going to use orange for this bit. I'm going to, just a little bit of orange on the brush. I've got to give that downward feather sort of stroke. Crossing over, just a faint little bit. You don't want to overdo it. Just to give the impression that the feathers are going downwards. But we're also going to run some of that dark blue. Shadow areas under the layers of feathers. Not too much. You don't want to overdo this. So, back on the other side of the bird, I'm going to do the same thing with yellow. Just going to work back some of that yellow into this side of the orange. Get some of those just faint dark blue shadow lines under the feather, dark blue shaded areas under the feather lines. And I'll just highlight some of it with yellow feathers. And now I'm going to start working some red into that orange. Once the red will try and overpower, so try not to spread it too far into the orange. I want to get some down here. Rub all that red off. Go back to my orange. Start working the orange into it. See the red starting to take over. It's just going to be a case of I'm going to have to keep working it to get it to the shades that I'm after. Some orange. Now the orange I'm using for the highlights here and the red. Now, get some yellow and bring that yellow back over just with the tip of your brush to bring some of that yellow down in through that orange and red. I'm looking to get that impression of layers of feathers that have got orange tips, yellow tips here. And back down the other side. Just getting that blues while it's still wet, just to blend into the orange a little bit, not too far. Okay. I've just got to get this blue to go over the top of the orange. Just like those blue feathers now are pinch of white in it just to break up that total darkness. do under the wing here. Right. So I'm putting a thick paint on, thick yellow paint. Then I'm using the green. Now I'm not over blending here, I'm just trying to get that, you can see the blues coming through. That's the problem with using darker colours under lighter colours. So I'm using that green just to dab on, not over blending because I want to get that roughness of feathers. But down the bottom edge, we're going to give it, to make it pop, we're going to give it that blue edge. Use some water just to help it spread a bit. There, so now I'll just work that a bit more, try and give it that feather look. Got it coming down to a dark point. Now this area should be a bit darker anyway because it should be in shadow of the bird. So I'll get a bit of blue into it. Just too much blue. Wipe some of that off. Move it down here. Just to give it that shadowed effect. The yellow is a bit light, so I'm just darkening it up with some blue and green. I'm going to bring that blue over the top of it. Shadow under the wing. And we're just using the tip of the brush for this. When you use a whole brush, you tend to take paint off as well as putting paint, while you're trying to put paint on. When I'm using the tip, I'm not removing paint from the canvas. Just a little bit of a blurriness in it, just to take the focus away from the tail, because it's the top of this part up here I want everyone to see. I'm just going to get a little bit more white into that. That'll do for the tail there. Just tie this bit here up. More shape there. Just trying to fix up those edges because they just look like straight brushed edges. I'm trying to get that feathery look. Just breaking it up with some downward strokes. Oh, now the wing. So I'm going to put a base coat down of green, make it all wet, layer nice and thick over the top of the body. I'm actually going to let it dry out a little bit because I want this body part here, you can see through it, and I want it to dry out a bit just so you can't see through it as easy, because if I keep painting over the top of it, as you can see, it keeps scraping the paint away. So I'll leave that wing at the moment. I might put in a bit of a wing on this side. And I'm going to go to the eye. So the eye is a really dark blue shaded area. And it's got, so around the back of the eye, and it runs back like he's got attitude. And that evil look at the front. And it goes to a red. So I've got the red center, but I've got to work it out and start blending in the blues that I just put on. So the redness is only really in the center of the eyeball. So that's the redness in the center of the eyeball, and then I'm going to put a dark blue, or you could use black, but I'm going to use dark blue circle. And to achieve this, I'm going to use the back of a paintbrush. Mix up some paint. Get it dark. I want a blob of paint on the back of my brush. Just dab it on. So I've got the circle of the eye. I'll let that dry out a bit because I'm going to put a little white dash in the eye, but I'll come back to that. we're going to work on the beak. Darker at the bottom, so can have some redness at the bottom. Orange through the middle, so I'll blend it up to an orange. And white at the top, reflection of light. Just blend it so it gives it that rounded look. That's good. We're going to give it a red line, probably a bit of blue in that red. So a darker red. Shading under the top beak to the bottom beak. Like that. And I'm just going to get a pinch of blue just to tidy up that edge so the feathers are now covering that beak again. And I'll put my hand in paint and touch the side. Always happens. Just a bit of tidying up as I go. I'm going to just tidy up this bit a little bit. There's a branch that runs across here, so I'm not too worried about what's there because you won't see it so much. So now, let's work on that green wing. Getting that paint thicker on it again, and I'm going to work that some yellow. Work my way up from the bottom so it looks like layers over the top of each other, heading down to the bottom, not over blending it, just so the yellow highlights in certain spots. Tidying up those edges. I'll use that yellow along the blue edge here just to make it pop a bit. And just working my feathers back up the wing. At the top here, I want to just get a pinch of blue into that, just give it that shaded effect at that top edge. Now work the green back over it. Where the wing joins the body, just like the feathers are going over the orange. Start using some yellow to highlight the green spots. So where that edge where the wing joins in. Where the crazy feathers are at the top of the wing, where they're not sure where they want to go, so they're going all over the place. Mix it in, get that yellow happening at the top. So it all binds together, looking like that all the feathers actually do join part of the bird together. Yep, there's the wing, there's the bird. I'm still happy with a little bit more yellow down here. Okay, so what I've done is I've painted the branches with a brown grey and agree with going to a light green at the top, and with the Bottlebrush nuts just dabbed on with circles with some darker grey and some white just for highlights. This spot here I haven't got too fancy with the shading because this is going to have the Bottlebrush on it. On my branches I've got darker edge down the left side and a lighter edge on the right side. Once again, no great detail, you don't need it, people know it's branches. So, excuse me. So what I'm going to work on now is the Bottlebrush stems. Now I think this is new to me, so I think this can make or break your picture if you overdo it. I'm trying to just do the layers now. I've got to add some water to the red because it's not running as easily as I hoped. So I don't want to overdo these stems. I can always add more on. I don't want to make them, that one there's too thick. So a Bottlebrush is this shape here. So I'm just doing a first layer. Going out of the top and out of the bottom. I'm just using the tip of my brush here. So I've got them coming out this way, out that way. Now I'm going to mix a bit of blue into that red, just to give me a darker shade. And here I'm going to put some darker ones, going not all the way out. Probably make that a little bit darker. Just coming out from that stem, just some darker red pieces. Don't know what you'd call them. But I'm not coming out that full distance. And I'm also going to use that darker bit at the end, just get some dots on the end of the stems I've done, and then I'll reassess and see how much more I want to put on for my bottle brush. All this is a little dot at the end. Not everyone has to have the little dot. I'm going to start thickening up. So I've got some going this way. Now I want ones that come straight up, out. So I'm going to use a red. So this centre bit will be a lot thicker with the shorter ones. So all those gaps in between the long ones, I'm just putting some shorter ones. Twirls at the end. A couple of twisty ones in there. Not too much, I don't want to overdo it. Now I give those ones that darker dots. Just giving some random dots along the line. Excuse me. I'm just going to build up a little bit more on that centre bit, just to make it feel like it's a lot more bushier off the stem, off that branch. So I'm filling up any white gaps in the background that I can see. Now, I'm going to get some darker ones, even darker, so it's more of a deep purple. Okay. So now I'm looking at it and I've decided I'm going to give it a few more red ones just to thicken it up a little bit. I might start giving some of them a random direction nature's not that organised. I'm just using the tip of my brush just to flick out some lines. Now at the top, just some of these nuts, I'm just going to put some growth starting to sprout out. Just some dots. At the end of those stems. Right, yeah, now we're going to go with the gum leaves. We're going to go with medium round, use the point of it. So we're going to randomly put on gum leaves where I think they would go. We probably have one coming out here. I can already tell that this green's not strong enough, and I'll have to do a second coat. I'm just using the tip to line the edges of these gum leaves. So I'll go and place them all on first, then I'll go along and do the detailing once it's dried out a bit. I'll put that plate there. I'm just putting random gum leaves on now. Oddly enough, gum leaves do point upwards a lot, whereas they've got the growing strength in them. Generally, leaves will tip over. So there, I've already noticed a problem. The gum leaf here, the green washes out with the colour of the bird. So I'm going to have to do some highlighting or put some darker detail into that one. And again, I don't want to overdo the gum leaves. They're not the focus of the picture. To give it a bit of depth, we're going to put a leaf over the top of the bottle brush. Some down here. Oh. I'm going to work on the detail for that. So I'm going to get some green, same green as I used for the leaf, add some of the blue to it. We're going for a darker green. We're going to put a bit of red in that as well. I'm just looking for a darker tone. That's probably too much red. There we go. So part of the leaf will be darker. So I'm just giving it some edges where just to give it that shading. Wash the brush off so I can do some blending. Some green on my brush. There we go. I'm just blending the darker shade into the green. And you can even see now that second coat of paint's starting to take effect. You can't see through it as much now. Now if I do the darker edge here in the bottom, it'll pop that leaf off the bird. And I'll also do a lighter edge as well on top. Clean my brush, get some green on it, do some blending. Not focusing too much on details. Whoops. Now I'm going to get some white. Probably lighter, a really light green would be better than the white. Alright. I'm going to get a small fine point tip, fine tip, yellow, pinch of green, a really yellowy green, and with this we're making the veins of a leaf. Just running that tip down. Probably add some white to it, I think. Back to my brown. It's too red. So generally you find if you mix all the colours, red, blue, yellow, even some green or whatever, you're going to get a brown. You just got to play with it, get the colours that you're after. Now I've got my brown, I want it lighter. So I'm just adding some white to it. So I'm just putting in, just in some details of the stems. Just to give the impression that the bottom of the leaf is joining the wood, the timber trunk, the branches. Just going to tidy it up now. There's a bit of shading in some spots, maybe some highlighting.
If you found this video entertaining, helpful or inspiring, we'd love for you to consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that notification bell. Subscribing will ensure that you never miss out on any of our future content that we create especially for you.